We've got a good Alberta boy in studio, Kelly Hrudey, joining me. Thank you for doing this as always.
Thanks, Tim. My pleasure.
Are you surprised at how we got to 2-0 Colorado?
Well, obviously I'm hesitating, so to a certain degree, because I thought yesterday, Edmonton played quite well. In particular, the first period was fantastic, and then you heard Chris Cuthbert say in 2 minutes and 4 seconds the game turned, right? So, and Elliott did a great job last night in the second intermission explaining how every single time that Colorado scored, it was actually easy mistakes that are correctable that the Oilers made, right? So it's not as though you look and say, man, Colorado is just incredible and their firepower and you can't match it, although I have to give Kadri incredible credit for the game he had. He was well, he's been great in the entire playoffs, right? Yeah. So he has just been at a different level. But I think I look at Edmonton and I go, there's no reason why they can't climb back into this series. There's no question to me.
One of the things that worried me a little bit was I was shocked that with Pavel Francouz in net, that McDavid and Kane and Draisaitl were outshot by Nathan MacKinnon 11-7. Like I just looked at that and I'm just like, I thought they would try and pepper the new keeper. What did you see there with Francouz and the matchup?
I'm smiling because that always goes back to my career. I'm thinking, I'm in the net, we're facing maybe a youngster or inexperienced guy, and why don't we have 15 shots in him in the first period and 20 in the second and continue, right? And so that was kind of like a mystery. He did a great job. I said last night, and I know Elliot and Jennifer were teasing me after the second intermission because I said he was solid. He didn't have to be spectacular. He made some really big, timely saves, which are always important. But I thought McDavid, Draisaitl, Kane, I thought even in the first period, they were exceptional. But their play dipped, and I'm not sure why. But that can happen, right? Like I thought, we talked about in the first intermission, I thought McDavid was at the same level he was at in the last 2 games versus LA and the first 4 games versus Calgary. So I have to be certain that he's going to find that same level tomorrow in the first 2 games in Edmonton.
Okay, I said something earlier in the show, and I said I was going to ask you if you agree because you know more than me. Is this one of, if not the fastest team that we have ever seen in Colorado? Like the speed or the pace with which they play, and they're allowed to play.
But
I some of those breakouts, like I'm just like
the breakouts, right? It starts with their D, right? They're so good at the breakouts, and we highlighted Byram last night. Just the kid is amazing, as is Makar. We've known that about Makar for a long time, but I think Byram was just again showcasing what he can do. And I don't know if the hockey world really knows how good he is yet. And he's got a bit of an edge. I hope I didn't get ahead of myself yesterday, but in the first intermission, I compared Byram to a young Duncan Keith. And there are a lot of similarities, right? The way they like to lead the rush, breakout passes, a bit of an edge. But Makar, I mean, come on, he's going to go down as one of the greatest defensemen to ever play the game.
Really? You think that good?
Yes, he is.
What makes him special in your mind? Yeah,
well, skating.
I was asking the question, I'm thinking, like, I've seen him shake guys in, like, it looks like a phone booth. Like
skating, but clearly his mind for the game and how quickly he can make decisions. There was a breakout, I want to say in game 1, where it's McDavid chasing him behind the net, and he just the way he was able to use the net as coverage and sort of head up ice, only about 20 feet before he passed the puck away, but that's special. I mean, that's unique to get away from McDavid that way and that easily.
He made an impact immediately as a defenseman, and I've been told my whole life that it's really hard for defensemen to make impact. Like,
it is.
Is that kind of part of what you're talking about here? Like, just the hockey IQ to be able to jump in and be this good this early?
Now, I was told that would have been what people would have noticed with Dennis Potvin early on, and so Dennis is one of the all-time greats. I was lucky enough to watch Rob Blake. And he's one of the all-time best, and he had that immediate impact. One of my favorite stories from last night, Kyle Bukostis told the story going into one of the start of the second period, I believe, at that Tyson Barrie. He goes, when Makar showed up at his first training camp, he he knew within about 15 seconds that he was out of there. But it was just so obvious. And I kind of shared with Ron and Elliot and Jennifer last night, I kind of felt the same way the first time I laid eyes on Jamie Storr.
Right.
I believe in '94, the Kings drafted him 7th overall, and I was the starting goalie there for a number of years. And I see Jamie at the other end of the ice in training camp, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's the reason why I won't be here forever. Now, Jamie had a good career, but maybe not the one that I thought. Sorry, Jamie, I thought you were going to be one of the all-time best. But nonetheless, you see some people early, and you know immediately.
Okay, so we go from Cale Makar, who is special, and Bo Byram. I didn't know. Jen Botterill came in here and asked her.
Yeah.
I was like, who should we be looking out for? And she said Byram. And I haven't watched near enough Colorado Avalanche hockey. I've seen him. Obviously, he was a great junior player as well. Yeah. And sometimes that jump can take it, but he has been a horse and made an impact. But from their defense to Edmonton's defense, it seems to me like maybe Nurse's injury might be a little bit more concerning even now than Leon Draisaitl's injury.
Yeah, I'm hesitating again because after first 2 games, you're playing in Colorado on the road. I would agree that I had higher expectations for their defense. And I'm even going to, Nurse for sure, he struggled last night. But I thought even Cody Ceci, whom I thought played incredibly well versus Calgary and versus LA in the first round, I think he's been a little bit quieter. And I know he's not a marquee guy, but he's an important player, right? And Keith, I noticed signs, Duncan Keith, he had moments where he was exceptional. I do think that they're going to get back to playing their game. I have high hopes for Edmonton that, you lost the first 2, but there's no suggestion or nothing telling me that it's all Colorado and it's going to be a 4-game sweep. Having said that, they probably will. That's what I know about the game.
I wrote down my conundrum, trying to make myself sound smart. My conundrum here is that we've seen Edmonton get behind before, and honestly, we watched that first game against Calgary, and it looked like, oh boy, like they're in some deep trouble here.
Right. Down 6-2, and they tied it up early in the third.
Right, and even after the 9-6, you're like, that was a dominant performance. I think the shots on goal were something like 40 to 24, and you're thinking like, well, Calgary might run them out of the building, and they won 4 straight. Yeah. So there is some resiliency in this 100%. Group. And 2 of the best players on planet Earth. I don't think you can count them out ever.
100%. And to your point, so in game 1 versus Colorado, they were down. And I remember in the second intermission, Ron said to us, Justin, Elliot, myself, do you think this game is over? And I said, no. And they were so close to tying it up late in the third period, right? Yeah. They had a real good chance to make it 7-7. And so, no, I don't count them out. And Kane, we're showing some clips here of Kane. I think he's just been incredible. Somebody's going to have a good player in Evander Kane. I don't know if it'll be Edmonton, but somebody's going to pay a lot for him because this has been a really good playoff for him.
Without a doubt. Before I let you go, there's a Coach of the Year in Southern Alberta.
Right.
What about the job Darryl Sutter did?
Did a great job. And I think that his players also have to take a lot of credit or be given a lot of credit for the way that they committed to Darryl's style of play. And so I've said all along, the season the Flames had this year, they didn't exceed expectations. They've only met the expectations that I had for them. I knew this team could be good, and with Darryl's guidance and great job by Brad Treliving, they're in really good shape moving forward.
You mentioned someone's going to get a good player in Evander Kane. I'm not going to ask you if you know. I'm just going to ask you what your gut tells you about Johnny Gaudreau.
I think he stays.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm only basing it on, I have no inside information. I only base it on his comments after the season ended and how much
positive. Yeah.
And I've been told by a lot of people just how much he and his wife love the city. And I think it kind of, you can see it on the ice. If you love the place you're playing, you usually get a good performance, right?
Right.
You usually don't get that kind of world-class performance if you're looking to move elsewhere, even though he's a free agent. But, I just think that he's really embraced his role on the team and in the community. Like, he's fan favorite #1, right? And, the Flames fans love their team, but they love Johnny more than anybody else. And that's pretty intoxicating when you're a player to know how much the fan base loves you.
And it doesn't hurt to have a front line like that, like to know that you've got a couple guys that you can ride with for a while here.
Well, two, Matthew Tkachuk, but Lindholm is the key on that line.
Yeah.
That guy is the fixer of all things.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him as well.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of you. Thank you for walking down and doing
Thanks,
this. Always
buddy.
appreciate it.